I do want to talk about it, but I'll try to do it briefly. The first thing was the first thing where I felt that I was up against something huge was the first time that we did a press event for ABC for the show. And they had the whole family come out. We sat on the couch, and we were told that we were going to answer questions about the show, right? Mm-hmm. And I never wanted to be out there alone because I knew it would all be about me and things I had said about the election. Well, so now the same presidents that canceled me were standing there, and we're talking about presidents of a big network that at any point can step forward to go, we don't really like this line of questioning. We're here to discuss our new show. But they never did. And it seems so coordinated now. The first 5 questions were from African-American journalists. And this was the first question, 1 through 5, all 5 of them. How can you, who were this person who was, against racism, against homophobia and all the isms, somebody who stood for justice, how could you now embrace racism and a racist president? And I would say, well, that's your opinion, and I don't agree with you. So then he'd sit down, and then the next one stand up and say the very same thing. And the presidents of ABC could have said, let's move on to talk about the show. And John Goodman said, they're trying to crucify you. And finally, and my fellow cast member, the other producers said, don't say anything, don't say anything. So I didn't. I just said, well, that's your opinion. You're entitled to it. But by the 5th time, I was very angry. And this woman that was a woman, and she said all that too about racism. And I said then, and I think this really made them angry, because anytime you express an alternative view to leftists, they get angry. Yes. But I said racism, the reason I didn't vote for Hillary Clinton is because of Haiti. Do you know anything about Haiti? If you're talking about racism, and they became irate, and they just stood there giving me their evil eye the whole time. And then they started asking about the show. What's it like to be back together after 20 years? But I feel like afterward, that was kind of coordinated. It was too perfect not to be coordinated. And then they came to me and they wanted me to say this line, and it was Thursday, and I'd been asking for, I like my writers to work, and I don't really like anymore to have to write my own lines if I have good ones from people that are making millions off me. Yeah. So I don't want to do their job. So I said, well, I needed a joke here. And they brought down a joke. And I said, oh, I don't think this is the right joke. And it was a joke about other shows on ABC, other working class shows. And I said, I think this is insulting. And they said, no, it's about all working class people, support all other ones, Asian, Black, you've got to show that. And so I just let myself be talked into it. So I said it. 2 days later, the New York Times comes out and uses that joke, saying, this is the racism that the Roseanne show is about. And I didn't write that. And, my instincts were right. I was right. It was insulting. But the president of ABC defended that joke in a big article the next day, of course, saying, she defended the writers, not me. She defended the people who wrote the joke and not me. So I was getting slimed there double. And then, there were a few other things like that happened along the way to my tweet. And that morning of the tweet, it was Memorial Day. And already I had sent my favorite writers from the original show to interview to get back on this show, because I felt like, it would be fun to have people who really know these characters. They were all rejected. All the Black writers I sent were rejected. All the Hispanic writers that I personally searched for and sent, they rejected. And that day I called and said, when are we all going to start writing? Because every idea of that whole reboot is mine that I had 20 years to think about. When I called that day on Memorial Day saying, when are the writers' room, when does that start up? And he said, we've already started. And I just felt my brain crumble. And he goes, but oh, we would love so much for you to drop in and say hello.
Wow.
And so I knew I had already lost control. I knew I had lost control of my show. And so maybe that had something to do with me blowing it all up in that tweet. I was so angry and I was so unsettled. And I felt like, oh my God, I didn't even see this coming.